I covered a rural logging community.
Baby, set fractures. Went out for all the emergencies at nighttime or during the day. Did this round the clock for 8 years. I covered the community and with a partner the first year. We took every other day on call. After a year, he said, "That's enough. I'm not doing this anymore." So I did it with a physician assistant. And it was quite the challenge, quite the learning experience. And through that, I became interested in acute care and went into emergency medicine for 30 years more until Sanjay Gupta changed my life. Now, when I mention acute care in emergency medicine, boy, that's fun. It's exciting to shock a heart and sew up a laceration and reduce a bony fracture. We're pretty good in acute care in the United States of America, but we're pretty lousy at dealing with chronic illnesses, overweight, diabetes, heart trouble, kidney disease. We have an epidemic of those diseases in our country, and we do not treat them very well. How do we treat them? We treat them like I've been listening to on the lectures. What have you been learning about the last couple days? One pill after another pill, basically. And so when I said Sanjay Gupta changed my life, I really meant that. I was listening to a program with my wife about 12 years ago. And on this program, it was called The Last Heart Attack. And Sanjay reviewed a study at the Cleveland Clinic where they took end-stage heart diet I'm going to share that I do with you, but it worked for this group of people. He put these people, he said, you're not to eat anything that has a mother or that has a face, no processed foods, and no foods with high amounts of fat, including nuts and seeds and avocados. That's a pretty strict diet, pretty foreign to most of you, and you're not going to like what I have to say about some of the top.
Expand your brains a little bit. Open them up. Give yourself a chance to look at another option, just as I did. I've been a doctor for 35 years. When I saw this study, Esselstyn took these people at the Cleveland Clinic. He put them on just a different diet. He met with them every 2 weeks to make sure they would stay on that diet. How long did he meet with them? For 5 years. And you know something? They were all alive at the end of 12 years. No further heart attacks, no further bypasses, no further
stents, except for one guy. One guy at 6 years said, I feel so good, I'm going to go back and eat how I used to eat. What was he eating? What you're eating, the standard American diet. And he had another bypass. He fortunately lived and went on to live past 20 years even. My wife, after listening to this, looks over at me and she says, Charlie, you think we should do this? And I said to myself, there ain't no way. I am not doing this. I mean, I love my cheese pizza. I love French fries, Kentucky Fried Chicken. I'm eating ice cream every night of my life. I have to have a teaspoon or two of Rocky Road or some ice cream, I don't care, before I go to bed at night. But there was a little voice on my shoulder. It said to me, you know, Charlie, your wife's dad died at age 41. First heart attack. He didn't have a second chance. Your wife's brother, he's had his chest cracked. He's had his bypass. Your wife's mother has had her chest cracked with her bypass. Your wife is as old as they were. She is next in line. Do you want a new wife? And I had to think about that for a moment. I didn't think very long because we had been married at that point. Let's see, I don't know, about 30 years. It's been 42 for us now. I said, God, I don't want to really get a new wife. I like who I have right now. And yet I don't want to do this. I could do it though for a month. I'll do it for a month for her. Change my diet completely. Support her. If it seems to be working and she's doing well, I'll go back and eat how I used to eat. Good compromise, huh? Okay. What did we do? We read one book called How to Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. It was that Cleveland study to kind of learn a little bit about what was done and what we would be eating and how it would change our life a bit, a lot. And we watched one movie called Forks Over Knives. And after that, we went to our cupboards and we pulled out all the meat, all the dairy, all the eggs, all the processed foods, all the oils. We put them in boxes and bags and we gave it to our kids. They thought it was Christmas because we were stocked up, you know, we didn't have a half a cow at that time. We were, you know, we did buy that occasionally throughout our years together. But we had a lot of animal products in our life and a lot of processed foods. And we didn't, I was very skeptical. I was a non-believer 12 years ago. I was just like the majority of you who are eating the standard American diet. I had never questioned, why do I eat what I'm eating? What's the evidence connected with the food that I'm eating? Like, is meat, what study do I have that shows me that this actually will bring me health that I want? What about these eggs? Where's the study? I mean, I've learned so much about the drugs and their side effects and the other stuff, but I had spent zero time on learning about what benefits there are or disadvantages to the foods that I'm eating. So we gave it to our kids. They thought it was Christmas. We were giving them poison, as it turns out. I don't feel good about it, but I laugh about it now as I try to change what they're eating. Why do I want to change what they're eating? I want to change what they're eating because 1 month, 30 days, I was never hungry one day. I was full all the time by just eating plants. Plants as grown in nature, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, the beans and lentils. Filled up, satisfied. My weight dropped 10 pounds first month. I'm now 35 pounds lighter after 12 years. It actually only took about a year for that to happen for me. And then my weight stopped dropping and I maintained an ideal body weight now. And then my cholesterol level. Boy, I had followed that throughout the years. You all are ordering a lot of cholesterol levels, I'm sure, on your patients. I'm not sure exactly why you're ordering so many, because the purpose of ordering it is to try to get your patient to do something different. Because if you're just ordering it and keep pushing another drug, all you're doing is managing an illness. You're not trying to cure anyone. And I don't know about you, But I personally didn't go into medicine to manage disease. I had a dream of actually helping people get healthy. That dream was busted as I pushed one pill after another. And I became close to the burnout stage, which half of you are headed in that direction toward burnout. If you continue to practice treating patients with another pill instead of encouraging them to do something different with their lifestyle choices. And a lot of people, I'm going to kind of give you a spoiler alert here. The spoiler alert here is, if you do not do this yourself, you're not going to be very successful at helping patients do this themselves. People ask me this question all the time. Charlie, we cannot get our patients to take their high blood pressure medicine. We can't get them to take their cholesterol lowering medicine. And how do you get them to change what they're eating? I said, I do it myself. Patients understand the passion that I have. I share with them the people over the years that I've interacted with. And the reason I give these talks, it's for these cards and letters. It's for the emails that people send me that their lives have literally been changed. They were able to get off of their pills, reverse their diabetes, cure their high blood pressure, get rid of chronic pain. GFR goes from stage 3 kidney disease on 3 of these patients to greater than 60. Anxiety, depression better. Skin rashes improved. Asthma helped. We all learned about asthma yesterday morning, about the drugs that you should be using for your patients. But there wasn't really much talk about the fact that if you help your patients change their diet, they may not have to take that albuterol inhaler at all. And I hope that you come away from this lecture with at least a curiosity that, is there something to what this guy is saying? We don't know him from Adam. Where did he come from? Because that's what I thought about when I was reading Esselstyn. But as I started learning more, I learned it wasn't just Esselstyn study. There was another study by Dean Ornish in Southern California. Many of you may know that Ornish's program of cardiac rehabilitation is actually approved by Medicare. It took 30 years to get that approved because medicine is so slow. I want you to think about what you're eating like smoking was in the 60s and 70s. You know, I graduated from my medical school in the 70s. And at that time, smoking was a big deal. And doctors, most of them smoked, or a lot of them smoked. And they would tell their patients, hey, you know, this can calm your nerves and smoking may be okay. It took 6,000 studies to convince the medical profession that, you know, smoking was detrimental to the health. But I remember my uncle going up in California against, in an attempt to ban smoking from public places, and how he was criticized. And I want you to think about that, how long it took for smoking to be understood to be harmful. I want you to think about food in this century as being like smoking was in the last century. If you take that attitude, maybe you'll start doing a little research on your own. And I'm going to share with you some studies. You're going to hear these studies, or you're going to choose to look at them, or you're going to choose to ignore them. But I'm going to attempt to provide some magic to get you to at least listen. And then it will be your choice as to whether you trust what is being said here, because I know you're confused about what healthy eating is. I know I was confused, and it's taken me years of listening to tapes and podcasts and reading, looking at different sites. Every week you're hearing something different about whether coconut oil is healthy for you or whether it's harmful for your health because of the saturated fat. And, it's very confusing. I get it. But there are sites that you could choose to use. And I had no training in this. I discovered this over time. And I've asked every medical student and every class member I've had over the last 12 years to find something wrong with the sources that I use. Just point out, hey, they're lying about this, or this is incorrect. And I've yet to find anyone to challenge Michael Greger's site, nutritionfacts.org. Anybody know about that site? There's a few of you in the audience who know about that. And I hope by the time we get done, they will convince you that you should also use that as one of your resources as you go on your journey to try to determine what's best for you. I really want this to be for you, these sessions. I have 2 of them with you. I'm going to run through some slides, but if you have questions, I want you to ask them, and I don't mind being interrupted. We're going to talk about a number of things, and I'm going to start out with a movie, a little film clip, because you want to learn how to convince your people why they want to do something different with their life rather than just take another pill. Let's see.
What will your last 10 years look like? Will you be quick enough for a game of tag with your grandchild? Strong enough to embrace every moment? Will you grow old with vitality? Or get old with disease? It's time to decide. The average Canadian will spend their last 10 years in sickness. Change your future at makehealthlast.ca.
I've had a number of people in our classes, and I only give free classes because people don't want to pay to learn how to get healthy. And it's so inspiring to listen to their stories like these that it's really adequate payment for me. But I have my retirement funded up. And so, I'm kind of in a little different category here. I get that. But I must tell you, you can gain satisfaction and find joy back in medicine by thinking about doing this. I didn't finish my story about what happened when I changed my diet with my wife. I was working in the emergency department. And what happened in the emergency department? There's the break room. And what's in the break room? There's every cookie, donut, cupcake, whatever it is, known to mankind. I was always snacking. I'd whip out a tongue blade. I'd take a little bit of piece of snack and I say, I could have a little of this every so. That stopped. The moment I started eating the greens and the beans and the minerals and vitamins I was missing in my life, my cravings stopped when I filled up my stomach all day long. And I no longer crave those foods. It just happened. And I've had other people, they change their life, they change what they're eating, they start losing weight, they get off of pills. They say, wow, I'm feeling so good. They look at their hand and there's a cigarette in it. And they've told me, 3 people have told me, I've been into hypnosis. I've tried acupuncture. I've done everything. But when I changed my life, I looked at the cigarette and said, what am I doing? I don't want to do this anymore. And they threw the cigarettes away. It's so powerful, this change lifestyle decisions that you make. So my cholesterol level, what happened with it? I had taken 3 different statins because my cholesterol level was 240. They all gave me diarrhea so bad I had to take change my clothes at times when I was working in the emergency department. I then went to niacin. Boy, the burning and stinging in the head was such, I said, I'd rather die than take this medicine. I didn't learn till later that, it really is not going to prolong my life, taking those cholesterol-lowering medicine. It's not going to prevent a heart attack or stroke. Well, the number needed to treat is what? 1 out of 104 patients for a 5-year period. If you haven't had a stroke or heart attack, why are we pushing so many statin drugs instead of actually helping people change what the root cause of why they're having high cholesterol? And I'll tell you, in my case, and in 8 out of 10 of your patients' case, likely, my cholesterol went from 240 in 30 days to 148. I jumped up and down like, wow. This is incredible. And then a few months later, it was down to 135. That was no pills. Just changing what I was eating. I mean, maybe you can imagine why I'm so passionate about this. It not only helped me, it's helped all these other people. And what about my wife? She's 74, going to be 75 in another couple months. I'm 75, by the way. Take no pills. She has no evidence of heart disease. The only one in her family. Why do you eat what you eat? How much research have you done to determine your healthiest choices? Are you confused? We've talked about it. Don't you think, does it really make a difference to your health? And don't your genes determine your health? I believe that my genes determine my health. And I ask medical students their first year, and most of those say, well, genes determine most of the health until they get a little better educated. What is the deal with this whole food, plant-based stuff? Well, I'm going to show you some resources. You can take a picture. I'm sure they have access to this online. 21-day kickstart at the Physician Committee for Responsible Medicine. Download on your smartphone between this lecture and the next one, Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. Just plug in Daily Dozen. It's a green background with a little check mark, a white check mark. Download it so we can talk about it the next session. I have all my patients at the free clinic download this as a start. And I share with them what they can choose to eat. And there are so many foods, and most of the people say, this is great. I like this. I eat beans. I eat fruit. I like a few of these vegetables. And they get excited and they start learning, oh, I can do something different. I don't have to take those damn pills. You don't want to take pills, and neither do your patients. And besides, it's mainly treating symptoms for them. It's not treating the underlying cause, which we'll get to in a moment. Nutritionfacts.org. If you have not seen this, you just have to go to the site and listen to a video once a day. It's a 3 to 5 minute video. Some are longer, but most are short. You'll just be excited to learn about the actual science of nutrition. And then here's some other resources that we use. I don't want to confuse you with the facts. You can call, you can send emails, you can, ask questions. I talk to doctors, I talk to people, for 30 minutes, half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever it takes. And we do this for free. And there's no reason why you can't learn this. So you know why I'm changing, why I want to change. This is my wife when we went to Italy a few years ago. And I'm so glad I made the choice to keep my wife instead of getting a new one. She makes wonderful food. If someone had told me, Charlie, you're going to love what you eat 12 years from now, you won't be taking any pills, your wife won't have heart disease, I'd have said, I don't really believe that, but that's what has come about. Here is American College of Lifestyle Medicine. How many of you have heard of that? There's a number of you who haven't. If you haven't, I beg you, for your patient's sake, if not for your own, to go to look at the tenets of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. I'm in the process of getting certified. Going to take the test at the end of this year. It's a new specialty over the last 10 years, and what it talks about is treating the 6 pillars of disease or health, and that is what you eat, how you move, the chemicals you choose, how you deal with stress, including sleep and social contacts. If you address those issues with your patients, you'll find you will not have to be pushing the pills, and you'll actually get healing that you went into medicine for. I'm going to kind of skip through these because I get a little wordy sometimes. Inflammation. Most of you are probably understanding that chronic inflammation is the underlying root cause in a number, or at least contributor to a number of these various disease states, from heart trouble and diabetes, dementia, COPD, chronic inflammatory disease of the bowel, osteoporosis, chronic inflammation. What are the causes of chronic inflammation in our life? There's a bunch of foods, including the processed foods, sodas, sugary drinks, cooking oils, believe it or not, artificial sweeteners, and dairy and eggs. Boy, you're not going to like me when we talk a bit more about dairy and eggs, but I will give you my best arguments for why these are not health food choices for you. Movement. If you're sitting, like yesterday, I stood in the back of the room for 3 hours. Why did I do that? I refuse to be sedentary and lose 3 or 4 years of my life, because that's what our culture does, is sit. Chemicals. We all know about smoking, and most of us know about alcohol, and any amount of alcohol increases breast cancer risk. And I encourage my patients, I don't tell them stop drinking. I tell them the next time you have a drink, I'd like you to ask yourself a question. How am I feeling? What am I drinking this for? Get curious. What is the reasoning behind this? What are you gaining from it? And think about, is this really going to help me reach my lifetime goal of what I want for my life? And you may continue to choose to use that. It'll be your choice. No one's a policeman here. We don't give tickets. We're not going to judge you. You make the decision, but think about it. And then stress, lack of sleep, lack of social support, overwhelming stress. These are all causes of inflammation, lead to chronic disease. Many of you may not be aware of the AMA resolution for all U.S. hospitals from June of 2017. What do they say? Resolve, the American Medical Association hereby calls on all U.S. hospitals to provide a variety of healthful food, including plant-based meals that are low in what? Fat, sodium, sugar. Fat, sodium, salt, and sugar. And eliminating processed meats and health, and only promoting healthful beverages. How many in your hospitals are following these guidelines? They've been out for what? Since 2017, we're almost 7 years down the road. Any hospitals following these? This was co-sponsored by the American College of Cardiology. There are medical schools incorporating lifestyle medicine into the curriculum. Wayne State University. There are several other schools, including Harvard and Loma Linda and I think it's University of North or South Carolina at Greenville. They are really on the forefront of promoting this in their curriculum. And there are a number of organizations here which are promoting a more plant-based diet for not only individual health, but for the health of our environment and the world's sake. This is no longer fringe. This is cutting edge medicine, and it's the basic roots of how we're going to help people. Now, this is an important video for you to watch because you all look at the literature, you're doing continuing education. It's wonderful. But when you read an article, you kind of read it and you kind of either believe it or you don't believe it. Let's see what it takes to actually look at an article and really make a decision as to whether you should trust this or not.
I'm often asked how long it takes me to come up with one of my daily videos. Once the script is done, it doesn't take more than like 10 hours to create and record. It's the research phase that takes the most time. I don't think people understand how much work that takes. So I wanted to kind of pull back the curtain and give everyone a little sneak peek. If you go to pubmed.gov, where you can access the database of the National Library of Medicine, the largest medical library in the world, you can search for topics like diet or nutrition, and you'll see that there's about 100,000 papers published every year in the field of nutrition in the scientific medical literature. That's more than 200 studies a day. I can't read 200 studies a day, but 20 people could read 200 studies a day. I don't want to miss a single important paper. Then the next step is to look for what I call anchor articles. These are the new studies around which I construct the videos. I'm looking for novelty, practicality, and engagement. Is it groundbreaking? If it's just another study showing broccoli is good for you, unless there's some new insight, probably won't make the cut. Is it practical? I mean, is there some actionable information that can be used to make real-world kitchen or grocery store decisions? Right? Who cares if there's some new whortleberry with medicinal properties that can only be foraged wild in the Siberian tundra or something? Right? And finally, is there a way to make it interesting? That's actually probably the greatest limiting factor. There's lots of trailblazing new science with hands-on implications, but unless I can find a way to make it captivating, to add humor or intrigue or solve some mystery, sadly, it just kind of goes by the wayside. That's why we need like 10 different sites like this, so we can, I can just pass those papers along and be like, you try to make that interesting. Right? Once I have the anchor, then the real work begins. I mean, just because something is published in the peer-reviewed medical literature doesn't mean it's true. I mean, there are studies funded by the National Confectioners Association that finds that candy is just dandy. Studies covertly funded by Coca-Cola or the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a flawed study, but you have to give it that extra level of scrutiny. You always have to follow the money. Then you have to put the study in context. For all I know, that new study is some outlier or fluke. Maybe there's 10 other studies out there that show the exact opposite. How else can we make life or death decisions for ourselves and our families, but by the best available balance of evidence? Right? That's why every new study needs to be placed into context. Easier said than done. For example, let's say this paper lands in my inbox arguing that fish oil increases the risk of cancer. Now, I could just make a video about it, just laying out the facts. There was this paper published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal that presented evidence that taking fish oil increases the risk of cancer. Here's the paper, here's the link to download the paper, here's all the evidence they present in black and white, right in front of you. Here's their reasoning, their graphs, their charts, their diagrams. This is the peer-reviewed medical literature, people. Done. No, that's not good enough. That doesn't answer the most important question of all. Is it actually true? For all we know, this guy is just cherry-picking studies to fit some agenda. It's not enough for us to just stick to the peer-reviewed science. I want everything on nutritionfacts.org to reflect the best available balance of evidence. Okay, So how do I figure that out? Well, even if his arguments make sense based on the evidence he provides, you have to make sure he's interpreting the evidence he cites correctly. To do that, you have to pull all the 76 sources he cites to make sure he's not misquoting anything. And what if each of those 76 papers cites 76 other papers? And even if he correctly cited those 76 papers, what about all the papers he didn't cite? There have been more than 2,000 papers published on fish oil and cancer. And look, this paper was published back in 2013. What about the papers that have been published subsequently that cited this particular paper? And that's just one paper for one video, right? You'll be glad you did your due diligence, though, because then you'd realize, hey, that fish oil paper got retracted. Why? Because the researcher evidently failed to disclose he owned his own supplement company, which sold a competing oil supplement. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean something's amiss, but definitely requires additional scrutiny. So anyways, bottom line, ideally, we do a comprehensive search of the available literature to place any particular paper in context, while also going backwards and forwards in time to checking all the sources they cite and all the sources that cited them. And then we do that anytime a paper is published on nutrition, which, again, happens a mere 100,000 times a year. NutritionFacts.org is a 501c3 nonprofit charity that exists exclusively on donations from individuals like you. It's like a Wikipedia model of just accepting donations from users who appreciate it.
Okay, 100,000 articles on nutrition around the world. He's been reviewing. I've been following him for 12 years, and I explained to you I've yet to find a medical student or any other class participant find something wrong. I encourage you to go to his site, nutritionfacts.org. One of the other reasons I believe him is because he's saying the same thing as Esselstyn, who reversed the heart disease, and Ornish, who reversed heart disease, and Pritikin, who had a wonderful clinic of helping people live, and McDougall and Clapper, and there's a whole group of people who are promoting a whole food, plant-based lifestyle as the path to health. Okay, we've gone over the main root causes of disease. One of the problems in our culture is we in the United States live 4 years less and spend twice as much money for our health care. There's something wrong with that picture. 7 to 8 out of 10 people with chronic illness might not have to suffer these diseases if they chose a different lifestyle. Heart disease and erectile dysfunction. I used to tell a lot of people, you know, your erectile dysfunction, we're going to send you to the psychiatrist. This is probably in your head. That was my training. But let me tell you, atherosclerosis is generalized throughout our culture. Half of us are going to die of heart disease, and it's because of the foods that we're eating. And the penile arteries are smaller than the coronary arteries. When they get plugged up, you get erectile dysfunction. And I've had several people give me their thank you from their wives saying, my husband has had a return of function, and I'm grateful for that. Let me tell you, that keeps people on track. Diabetes, highly reversible. Even after 20 years on insulin and other medicines, people can get off by making choices in their diet that are healthy. Obesity, some cancers, autoimmune disorders, GI disorders. So,
why do we care what the federal dietary guidelines say? Well, the guidelines do direct how billions of dollars are spent in programs like the school lunch program, breakfast program, food stamps, WIC. More importantly, though, is their potential, their wasted potential, to turn this country's health around. After World War II, Finland joined us in packing on the meat, eggs, and dairy. By the 1970s, the mortality rate from heart disease of Finnish men was the highest in the world. They didn't want to die, so they got serious. Heart disease is caused by high cholesterol. High cholesterol is caused by high saturated fat intake, so the main focus of the strategy was to reduce the high saturated fat intake. So that means basically, cheese and chicken, cake and pork. So a berry project was launched to help dairy farmers make a switch to berry farming, whatever it took. And indeed, many farmers did switch from dairies to berries. They pitted villages against each other in friendly, cholesterol-lowering competitions to see who could do the best for prizes. So how'd they do? On a population scale, look, even if mortality rates drop 5%, you can still save thousands of lives. But remarkably great changes took place. An 80% drop in cardiac mortality across the entire country, with greatly reduced cardiovascular and cancer mortality. The all-cause mortality was reduced about 45%, leading to greater life expectancy, approximately 7 years for men and 6 years for women. That's what real dietary guidance can do. Now vying for the world record heart disease death rates, the United States of America. The most likely reason most of our loved ones will die is heart disease. It's still up to each of us to make our own decisions as to what to eat and how to live, but we should make these choices consciously, educating ourselves about the predictable consequences of our actions. Atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, begins in childhood. By age 10, the arteries of nearly all kids raised on the standard American diet already have fatty streaks, the first stage of the disease. Then the plaques start forming in our 20s, get worse in our 30s, and then can start killing us off. In our heart, it's called a heart attack. In our brain, it can manifest as a stroke. So if there's anyone watching this older than age 10, then the choice isn't whether or not to eat healthy to prevent heart disease, it's whether or not you want to reverse the heart disease you likely already have. Is that even possible? When researchers took people with heart disease and put them on the kind of plant-based diet followed by populations that did not get epidemic heart disease, their hope was that it might slow the disease process down, maybe even stop it. But instead, something miraculous happened. The disease started to reverse, to get better. As soon as patients stopped eating artery-clogging diets, their bodies were able to start dissolving some of the plaque away, opening up arteries without drugs, without surgery, suggesting their bodies wanted to heal all along, but were just never given the chance. That improvement in blood flow to the heart muscle itself on the left was after just 3 weeks eating healthy. Let me share with you what's been called the best-kept secret in medicine. The best-kept secret in medicine is that sometimes, given the right conditions, the body can heal itself. If you whack your shin really hard on a coffee table, you can get all red, hot, painful, swollen, inflamed, but will heal naturally if you just stand back and let your body work its magic. But what if you kept whacking your shin in the same place day after day? In fact, 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It'd never heal. You'd go to your doctor and be like, oh, my shin hurts. The doctor would be like, no problem. Whip out their pad, write your prescription for painkillers. You're still whacking your shin 3 times a day. Oh, it still really hurts like heck, but oh, it feels so much better with those pain pills on board. Thank heavens for modern medicine. It's like when people take nitroglycerin for crushing chest pain. Tremendous relief, but you're not doing anything to treat the underlying cause. Our body wants to come back to health if we let it, but if we keep re-damaging ourselves 3 times a day, we may never heal. One of the most amazing things I learned in all my medical training was that within about 15 years of stopping smoking, your lung cancer risk approaches that of a lifelong non-smoker. Isn't that amazing? Like your lungs can clear out all that tar, and eventually it's almost as if you never started smoking at all. And every morning of our smoking life, that healing process started to wham, our first cigarette of the day, re-injuring our lungs with every puff, just like we can re-injure our arteries with every bite, when all we had to do all along, the miracle cure, is just stand back, get out of the way, stop re-damaging ourselves, and let our body's natural healing processes bring us back towards health. The human body is a self-healing machine. Sure, you could choose moderation, hit yourself with a smaller hammer, but why beat yourself up at all? I don't tell my smoking patients to cut down to half pack a day. I tell them to quit. Sure, half pack is better than 2 packs a day, but we should try to only put healthy things in our mouths. We've known about this for decades. American Heart Journal, 1977, cases like Mr. F.W. here, heart disease so bad couldn't even make it to the mailbox, but started eating healthier, and a few months later he was climbing mountains, no pain. Now there are these fancy new anti-angina, anti-chest pain drugs out now that cost thousands of dollars a year, but at the highest dose may be able to prolong exercise duration as long as 33.5 seconds. It does not look like those choosing the drug route will be climbing mountains anytime soon. Right? See, plant-based diets aren't just safer and cheaper, they can work better because you're treating the actual cause of the disease.
What's happened with our food sources over the last 100 years? Take a look at 1900, the amount of sugar the average American ate, 5 pounds per year. Look at 2010, 77 pounds per year, and by this year we're up to 100 pounds on the average per person per year of sugar. Look at the oils, 4 pounds per year to 74 pounds. Cheese, 2 pounds to 30. Is it any wonder that our population is overweight? This is a fact, the fiber, which we haven't talked about, which if we don't get to this session, we'll be talking about it in our next session, the magic of fiber and how fiber is the food for your microbiome. Your microbiome are the bacteria in your large colon. They produce butyrate, an anti-inflammatory chemical. They produce serotonin. If you starve those bacteria by not feeding them enough fiber, you won't have adequate amount of anti-inflammatory or serotonin, the feel-good hormone. And what is their food? It's fiber. And where does that fiber come from? Does it come from meat? Does it come from dairy? Does it come from eggs? No, it comes only from plants. So every time you make a choice of eating something that is an animal-based product, you're getting 0 fiber. The average American eats 14 grams of fiber a day. We used to eat 60, 80, and 100 grams of fiber a day. How much fiber do I eat? 60 to 80 grams of fiber a day. It's easy to do. I will show you at the next lecture session because we're getting low on time, but you're also going to ask me, but how do you get enough protein? And I'm going to show you, if you take 500 calories of plant food and compare it with 500 calories of animal food, you get plenty of protein from plant food. You get a lot of fat from animal food, and look at the other nutrients you get from plant foods. Far outweigh. So other than that, I used to be, I know that this is, we're getting toward the end. I used to be the standard American diet or doctor, which is sad. I used to eat the standard American diet, which I no longer do, and I'm happy. We have, I saw this sign in one of our malls. I thought it was a joke for Halloween. Well, it isn't. Have you all seen this restaurant? My dad says, you know, that truth is often said in jest. Wings, burgers, and fries are actually toxic. And the youth of our country love this because of the spicy flavor. And I'm just going to have to, I do want to make a comment on this. Here's showing a narrowed artery. Here's showing an open up artery. That's not a stent. It's not a bypass. It's just food after 1 to 3 years. That's what the Cleveland Clinic study showed. 36% of the people had unclogging by angiographic analysis of their coronary arteries. And Ornish study showed 86% unclogging, visible unclogging, no surgery, just food. If that isn't a reason for you to consider doing something different with yourself and for your patients, I don't know what it will take. But I want you to consider that. And there are the blue zones, which you're going to be hopefully looking into. We can talk about later and what they do. There are people who are in the prime of their athletic competitive abilities who just eat plants. So we want you to think about changing how you practice. We'll talk some more about it at the next session. And we'll answer questions then too, because it looks like we're getting to the end. 5 minutes still?
Yeah, about 5 minutes.
Okay, great. Let's see, are there any questions? Or you don't have to have a question. You could be actually having experience with this and share it with your colleagues, like, yeah, I kind of found that this is beneficial for the people I'm dealing with also. Yes.
I completed fellowship in medicine at the Arizona Center for
Here, let's use the microphone.
2016, the fellowship in integrated medicine at the Andrew Center for Integrated Medicine. I just want to make people aware that since 2008, they established a program. It's a curriculum, interactive online program for residencies and all common care specialties for residencies. So if residencies can't create de novo, it's like 200 hours worth of integrative medicine. It's lifestyle medicine, basically. So that is available for residency programs.
Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Yeah, either here and then in the back next. Right here. Go ahead.
Patients with lots of, is that on?
Yeah, it's on.
Recommend my patients with lots of GI issues, Supergut, that book.
Supergut. So I usually recommend Dr. Bolshevich's Fiber Fueled is the book that I usually recommend. He's a really plant-based guy. There's someone in the very back.
Comment online. You talk about nuts for a minute, all created equal.
All nuts.
Nuts.
Walnuts are the healthiest choice. They have the most omega-3. The other nuts are healthy choices also. A quarter cup a day because they're really high in calorie density. If you're trying to lose weight, be careful about adding too many nuts into your diet, but they definitely are a healthy choice. And they're incorporated in Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. Yes.
My question is, I have a very elderly patient population. A lot of them are on fixed incomes. A lot of them don't cook for themselves. And,
Yes.
Like, how do you approach that? The cost of eating healthy, unfortunately, is expensive, or fresh fruits and vegetables. Like, what kind of advice for real, to convince them? Because most of them are like, yeah, that's great. I'm not going to cook. That's too expensive. Like, how do you approach that to convince them to make those healthier choices in a way that will work for them?
It's an excellent question, and this is how I approach that issue. I tell them, a can of beans or lentils, do you know how expensive that is compared to your meat, dairy, and egg products that you're buying in the market? They say, it's a lot cheaper. Yeah, so beans, lentils, potatoes, those are healthy food choices. You can actually live on that. Now, adding some fruit and vegetables when they're in season or if they're frozen, that is the best option. And if you don't like to cook, do you have a microwave? Most people have a microwave. You take a potato, you throw it in the microwave, you nuke it, you cut it open. you're not cooking really. You add in a half a can of beans, you add whatever favorite salsa you have, grab 2 handfuls of greens that you have in a little package that you whip open, put that on there, and then have fruit for dessert, whatever you want, fresh, frozen, whatever. And if one potato isn't enough, then eat 2. And if you don't like potatoes, you can eat rice, or you can eat other things that don't take a lot of cooking, really. You don't have to be a fancy chef. And for breakfast, oatmeal is a great choice. You got to have it here. I got to let the next section. I'll be back again. Thank you for your attention and look forward to it.